Hello, welcome back to Let's Play Jane's Fighters Anthology as we continue with the single aircraft showcases. Today we'll be doing another Swedish jet, this time the Saab Viggen. So we'll be flying over the Baltics again and simulating another Swedish-Russian conflict. Let's see here. There they are, Swedish, Russian, always the Russians. Let's see. Supply base. Let's do a bridge. And we'll face off against some of our contemporaries again. The MiG-21s. And let's see here. Saab Viggen. We're on page 6 of 8, guys, so we're almost through this list. And honestly, a lot of this is Russian. A lot of this page is Russian stuff, which I've done already. Actually, I might have done this whole page already, except for the Marchetti. And then, yeah, I've basically done all those too. So we're actually nearing the end. I thought somewhere I saw you could play as an F-86, but maybe I'm mistaken. Anyways, Saab Viggen. So the Saab Viggen's kind of a multi-role aircraft, similar kind of in concept to the F-4 Phantom, you know, supersonic multi-role aircraft. Let's start 10 miles out. Custom weapons load. I guess the big thing. So basically, what we're going to be simulating is we're going to go up against MiG-21s. Actually, you know what? Let's change this up a little bit and go up against a pair of MiG-21s and a pair of MiG-23s. MiG-23s are a little more contemporary with the, probably a little more contemporary with it. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do a mix. As far as weapons go, what era? You know what? I think I'm actually just gonna go all in on the MiG-23, so we can say this is, you know, maybe the 80s. Not gonna use Mavericks. We're not gonna use rocket pods. We have plenty of internal fuel actually, so we are going to take a jamming pod on our center line. If we're gonna do that. May as well do that, right? Give us a little more opposition. As far as what else? Now, they did use the AMRAAM. They also used some stuff equivalent to on early models to the Sparrow. I think, yeah, we'll stick with the Sparrows for the added difficulty. But then we will also carry... let's see. Yeah, I didn't think as much. Okay, we can carry a pair of 3-pack bombs under our wings. And we got 2 Sidewinders for self-defense. So I think this is what we're going to go loaded in as. And this should be more than sufficient to enable us to deal with the bridge and the fighters. Although we might suffer in the dogfight while carrying these bombs. So let's jump in. Alright, radar on. Jammers on. Let's fire off our first salvo here. Who is this going to be? He let loose a lot of chaff. Oh, got him. Redirect if he's still can. Nope. He is dodging, but no, I was surprised that I saw the chaff and it's like, oh, that's it. But no, it's still homed in. Yeah, I have a very, very bad view of the Sparrow because of this game, which I know is mostly because it tries to simulate the difficulty faced by pilots in Vietnam. But even the newer one, sucks ass. So, although I think the newer one is supposed to be the like the Vietnam era improvement that they made, where they reduced the range and increased the maneuverability to kind of optimize it for fighters. But they had more versions after that probably were more effective. Alright, there we go. So, even though I made these guys' experience as R-Wing, you can see we're still kind of laying them to waste here. I don't think we've taken... I think one of our pilots might have been hit, but he's still in the fight. And they just got this guy left. Which, if we can close in on him, we have a perfect lineup for a half shot. We are closing on him very slowly. He's busy scissoring with, Oh, there was another one. Thanks for covering my rear. Okay, that's, ground fire. Alright. We are in... Yeah, I didn't think we had a built-in IR seeker. There we go. Tracking. Good hit. Got him. Oh, our wingman got him. But still. No bandits. All units disengage. Form up on my wing. And, let's take out that bridge to keep Russian armor from advancing. So... Oh, they got the ZSUs out. Alright. Well, this is the bridge right here. And you can see they're already trying to cross. And... release! Ugh. Pew! Got it. Mission accomplished. Alright. Looks like we got some man pads in the area. Oh, damn, they are really going to town on that. We'll take out some of the trucks now. And, we can do a strafing run on this guy. There we go, SA-15 destroyed. Alright, we got some ground fire. BMP-2 that advantage across the bridge. And is that another one? Yep. We'll take out all the units on this side of the bridge to give our ground forces a little more security, keep them from reinforcing their front lines with infantry and supplies here. Got some motostrelki that we're going to get rid of here. Miss me! Alright. We can have our wingmen help with their remaining bombs. But I think at this point it's mostly, oh, we actually have a lot of rounds for our gun. Got him! Alright. So, that leaves just, being a little laggy there for some reason. It should just leave the, one more, or two more BMPs that can shoot back at us, and then we'll hit the trucks, which, by comparison, should be a lot easier. And then we should be able to make it back to base. I will be taking out that Sam, though, because he's starting to annoy me. That should be in range. Oh, okay, he missed us. He missed us. We are golden still. We got here. That's a piece of destroyed air defense, so that's fine. Alright, let's go around for another pass. Alright, surprised that that Igla or whatever is shooting at us hasn't taken more pot shots than me yet. Alright. Oh, okay, we went through the explosion, so now we gotta deal with the frames freezing as we try to not hit our wingman there. And it looks like they're already gunning for that other EMP. And you can see with the bombs removed, we're really maneuverable even at low altitudes here, which is very nice. Very, very nice. And we're going decently fast, you know, not super fast, but you know, we got a decent clip running. We're at 350 knots. Ah, if I stayed on target just a little bit longer, he would have been done for. There he goes. So let's turn around, and now we can hit all the trucks. Take out the rest of the motostrelki. Oh, they just light up instantly. Damn. We got a ZSE-23. Let's knock that out while he's busy with our wingman, as he's one of the last remaining real threats. Oh, and there's the... There we go. Alright. That is about the last of the air defenses. Oh, this guy's got our number because we took out his buddy. Alright. Took a hit, but we're okay. Just a glancing blow there. Ooh, field trucks. Keep them from using it on the other side of the bridge. Get some extra credit there. Ooh. That was something that was firing back. BTR-80. Okay. Let's just do a nice run on the bridge here. Look at him turn in place. I think our wingman might have knocked out most of the... Nope, we still got a truck or two left. But you can see this whole armored... Well, not even armored. Motorized, really, column is... up in flames here.
Disengage. Disengage.
We'll have them disengage because they're probably using their afterburner when they shouldn't be. Oh, I did hit a guy. Alright, let's hit that BTR. And another fuel truck. Alright, so I think this is the last truck on our side of the bridge here. Should be fairly easy to knock down. There we go. And that BTR-80 should probably be about done for, yeah. If I stayed on a little longer, we would have been out of here. I think, nope, we have one more vehicle at the end of the column, which I think might be another BTR-80. Yep, okay. That's fine, we should be able to take that out, no problem. There we go. And let them have it. Gotta go through that again. Woo! Alright, I think I ended up doing more than I intended, but I think we cleared out that entire motorized column and the bridge to keep anyone else from going through. yeah, no one else is showing up on radar, so we are going to climb to altitude and fly heading 270 back to a base to land at. All right, let's switch to something we won't accidentally fire. And yeah, we'll land at Villainous. And we can turn our jammers off now that we're leaving the combat zone. So, the Saab 37 Viggen. Now, the name Viggen is the definitive form of the Swedish word Vig, which has two meanings, and according to the company, it refers to both. The first refers to Ask Vig, or Thunderbolt, inspired by, obviously, the Norse god Thor when he hunted giants with Mjolnir and threw lightning with his hammer. But Vig is also the Swedish name for the tufted duck, which is a small diving duck common in Sweden. And in this sense, it is a reference to the aircraft's canard configuration, as canard is the French word for duck. Oh, we are beginning to stall, so let's increase our thrust here. Where are we? Well, we're about 50 nautical miles out. Yeah, we're okay. We'll reduce our rate of climb and cut back our throttle a little bit, and together that should be fine. So, the Viggen was originally developed as an intended replacement for the Saab 32 Lansen in the attack role, and later the Saab 35 Draken as a fighter. In 1955, as Saab's prototype Draken, the most aerodynamically advanced fighter in the world at that point, performed its first flight, the Swedish Air Force was already forming a series of requirements for the next generation of combat aircraft. Due to the challenging nature of these requirements, a lengthy development time was anticipated, with the first flight intended to be no earlier than the middle of the next decade. Between 1952 and 1957, the first studies towards what would become the Viggen were carried out, involving the Finnish aircraft designer Arne Likoma. Over 100 different concepts were examined in these studies, involving both single and twin engine configurations, both traditional and double delta wings, and canard wings. Even VTOL designs were considered with separate lift engines, but were soon identified as being unacceptable. And I think we'll level out at around 10,000, 11,000 feet here. Our fuel efficiency should be such that we shouldn't need too much help in that regard. We'll keep a slow climb though. Alright, so we still can't see the airport on our radar, but that's fine. We should be roughly heading for it. From the onset, the Viggen was planned as an integrated weapon system to be operated in conjunction with the newest revision of Sweden's National Electronic Air Defense System, Strill 60. It was used as the nation's standard platform, capable of being efficiently adapted to perform all tactical mission roles. Other requirements include supersonic ability at low level, Mach 2 performance at altitude, and the ability to make short landings at low angles of attack to avoid damaging improvised runways. The aircraft was also designed from the beginning to be easy to repair and service, even for personnel without much training. One radical requirement of the proposed aircraft was the ability for it to be operated from short runways only 500 meters long. This was part of the BAS-60 airbase system that had been introduced by the Swedish Air Force in the late 1950s. BAS-60 revolved around forced dispersal of aircraft across many wartime air bases, including rogue runways acting as backup runways. Utilizing partially destroyed runways was another factor that motivated stolen capability. BAS-60 was developed into BAS-90 in the 1970s and 1980s and included short runways only 800 meters in length. Enabling such operations imposed several critical demands upon the design, including a modest landing speed, no flare touchdown, powerful post-landing deceleration, accurate steering even in crosswinds on icy surfaces, and high acceleration on takeoff. In 1960, the U.S. National Security Council, led by President Eisenhower, formulated a security guarantee for Sweden, promising U.S. military help in the event of a Soviet attack against Sweden. Both countries signed a military technology agreement in what was known as the 37 Annex. Sweden was allowed to access advanced U.S. aeronautical technology that made it possible to design and produce the Viggen much faster and more cheaply than would otherwise have been possible. According to research by Nils Bruzelius at the Swedish National Defense College, the reason for this officially unexplained U.S. support was to protect U.S. Polaris submarines deployed just outside the Swedish east coast against the threat of Soviet anti-submarine aircraft. However, Bruzelius' theory had been discredited by Simon Moores and Dirk Wyden. The connection also appears doubtful due to the timescale. The Viggen strike version only became operational in 1971, and the fighter version in 1978, by which time the Polaris had already been retired. And it looks like we got our runway here, so let's set a direct course for Vilnius. About 42 miles out. In December of 1961, the Swedish government gave its approval for the development of Aircraft System 37, which would ultimately become the Viggen. By 1962, all elements for the project either existed or were close to fully developed. These included the aircraft itself, the power plant, ejector seat, armaments, reconnaissance systems, ground servicing equipment, and training equipment such as simulators. In February 1962, approval of the overall configuration was given and was followed by a development contract in October of 1962. According to aviation authors Bill Gunston and Peter Gilchrist, the project was by far the largest industrial development task ever attempted in Sweden. During the 1960s, the Viggen accounted for 10% of all Swedish R&D funding. In 1963, Saab finalized the aerodynamic design of the aircraft. The aerodynamic configuration was radical. It combined an aft-mounted double delta wing with a small high-set canard foreplane equipped with powered trailing flaps mounted ahead of and slightly above the main wing. This would be judged to be the best means to satisfy the conflicting demands for slow performance, supersonic speed, low turbulence sensitivity at low-level flight, and efficient lift for subsonic flight. Canard aircraft has since become common in fighter aircraft, notably with the Eurofighter Typhoon, Dassault Rafale, Saab J37 Gripen, and the IAI Kiefer, but principally for the purposes of providing agility during flight rather than for its sole capabilities. Further aerodynamic refinements during the later stage of development included the addition of dogtooth patterns upon the main wing to generate vortices, allowing for the elimination of blown flaps from the canard. The use of a thrust reverser enabled the sought short landing performance. During development, Saab had opted to power the type using a single large turbofan engine. Originally, the British Rolls-Royce Medway engine had been selected to power the Viggen, which was then considered to be ideal for the basis of a supersonic engine equipped with a fully modulated afterburner. However, development of the Medway engine was cancelled due to the intended launch aircraft, the de Havilland Trident, being downsized during development. In place of the Medway, Saab chose to adopt a licensed production version of the American Pratt & Whitney JT8D engine, the Volvo RM8 instead. The RM8 was heavily redesigned using new materials to accommodate flight at Mach 2 speeds, a Swedish-built afterburner, and a fully variable nozzle. During 1964 construction, the first prototype aircraft commenced. On the 8th of February 1967, the first of an eventual 7 prototypes conducted its maiden flight, which had occurred as per the established development schedule. This first flight, which lasted for 43 minutes, was flown by Eric Dahlstrom, Saab's chief test pilot, who reported the prototype to have been easy to handle throughout. Writing at the time, aerospace publication Flight International described the flight as having been Sweden's astonishing unilateral stand in the front rank of advanced aircraft building nations. Each of the 7 prototypes were assigned different roles, although the initial aircraft was focused on supporting the development of the initial production variant, the AJ-37. In 1967, the Swedish government concluded that the in-development AJ-37 Viggen would be both cheaper than and superior to the McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom II. In April of 1968, the Swedish government formally issued the authorization for manufacturing of the Viggen to proceed, issuing an order for 175 Viggens that year. Also in 1968, Saab began work on the Viggen's maritime reconnaissance and photo reconnaissance variants. In May of 1969, the Viggen made its first public appearance outside of Sweden at the Paris Air Show. On the 23rd of February 1971, the first production aircraft, an AJ-37 model, conducted its first flight. In July of 1971, the first production aircraft was delivered to the Swedish Air Force. And now that we are getting closer to airfield, we will begin our descent, and it looks like we can see a few objects. Oh no, that isn't part of the airfield. Okay. I saw all this clutter here and thought that was the airfield, but no, that's... I'm kind of interested in what that is now. Are these... No, it's just terrain. Interesting. I wonder if it's just supposed to be like a little... Like if they used like USGS data to formulate the terrain basis for this game, I wonder if that's just supposed to be like a little village or something. Alright, so we can begin our landing. Haven't heard any more fuel complaints from our wingmen, so they should be fine.
Clear to land.
And we have landing clearance. Excellent.
Wind at 7 knots.
Alright, so let's drop to 20% throttle. Wonder if it... Oh.
Bug out.
Alright, everyone bug out. Yeah, weird. It must want me to come from either a different direction or land on that one of the alternate runways. But... Alright. Was that air defense complex? Yep. Hawk missile complex. Alright. Like, as soon as they said, oh yeah, our wingmen haven't complained about fuel, and like, oh yeah, I'm out of fuel. Like, great, you couldn't have said something earlier? It would have let you land first then.
I'm out of fuel, I'm punching out.
Alright. Wingman 2 was a dick. Or stupid, but... There we go. Beautiful landing. Well, at least it's a short walk to the airfield. Also, I'm kind of surprised I can still see them. Like, it still registers that they're my wingman, because normally when you tell them to bug out, they detach from your wing and go on their own separate way. So, and I'm pretty sure I remember the bug out activating correctly. I heard my guy say bug out, so. Okay, I went...
Joker fuel.
Alright, well, we're just gonna... Okay, yeah, they wanted me to land on a different runway.
Joker fuel.
Alright. I know, it's not...
Fuel. I'm running on fumes. Bug out!
Bug out. Alright, don't tell me... Okay. Wait. Are they... Nope, he's looping, so we're gonna lose all our wingmen, I think. Which is unfortunate, but AI gonna AI, you know. Alright, let's get a little bit more. There we go. Alright, so we are successfully landed. And I think our other wingman crashed, which is expected since he's being a dunce. But let us continue the reading here. As the initial J37 Viggen was being introduced to service, further variants of the Viggen proceeded to complete development and enter production. In 1972, the first SK-37, an operational trainer variant with a staggered second canopy for an instructor, was delivered to the Swedish Air Force. On the 21st of May 1973, the first prototype of the SF-37 Viggen, a tactical reconnaissance variant featuring a modified nose to accommodate 7 sensors, conducted its first flight. While other variants entered production during the 1960s, Saab continued the development of the more capable all-weather interceptor version of the aircraft, the JA-37. In 1970, Sweden's air defenses had been closely inspected and it was determined that the prospective JA-37 Viggen was highly suited to the role. In 1972, the Swedish government authorized the development of the fighter interceptor variant to proceed, which was followed by several major contracts for the JA-37's further development. A total of 5 prototypes were being produced, 4 of which being modified AJ-37s and 1 being a sole pre-production JA-37 model to test the control systems, engine, avionics, and armaments respectively. In June of 1974, the first of these prototypes conducted its maiden flight. Later that year, an initial order for 30 JA-37s was issued by the Swedish government. The JA-37 Viggen featured various changes from its predecessor, including revisions to the design of the airframe, the use of the more powerful RM-8B power plant, a new generation of electronics being adopted, and a revised armament configuration employed. The principal externally visible changes from most earlier variants were a taller tail fin and the under-fuselage gun pack arrangement. The JA-37, in addition to its principal aerial combat role, also retained a secondary ground attack capability and was better suited to low-level operations. In November 1977, the first production JA-37 Viggen conducted its maiden flight. Operational trials for the new variant were conducted between January and December of 1979, which resulted in the type being introduced to operational service that year. According to Flight International, at the time of the JA-37's introduction, it was the most advanced European fighter then in service. In April of 1964, the Swedish government revealed its budget proposal for the Swedish Air Force, which had been envisioned... Oh my god. You don't have the right to... He just exploded on the runway. Or on the taxiway. That's a lot of... That was a lot of secondary explosions, considering he should have had no fuel and no weapons left other than his cannon rounds. Alright, AI gonna AI. So, in April 1964, the Swedish government revealed its budget proposal for the Swedish Air Force, in which it had been envisioned that 800 or more Viggens would be produced, which in turn intended to allow all other combat aircraft that are in service with the Swedish Air Force to be replaced with the single type. However, a combination of inflation and other factors eventually reduced the total number of aircraft manufactured to 329. By 1980, up to 149 JA-37 Viggens were projected to be built and the line to be closed within the decade as the Swedish aerospace industry changed focus to the impending Saab JAS-39 Gripen, the Viggen's eventual replacement. Over time, advances in computing, such as the microprocessor, had enabled greater flexibility than the physical configuration of the Viggen, so further development of the Viggen platform was not viewed as cost-effective. In 1990, the production of the Viggen ceased and the final aircraft was delivered. In May of 1991, a 300 million Swedish crowns? Swedish krona. 300 million Swedish krona program to upgrade 11 AJ-37, SF-37, and SH-37 Viggens to a common multi-role variant, designated AJS-37, was announced. Amongst the changes involved, interchangeable armaments and sensor payloads were implemented. In addition to the adoption of new mission planning and threat analysis computer systems, the onboard ECM systems were also improved. Specifically, the implementation of a new stores management system and a MIL standard 1553 serial data bus similar to that used on the newer JAS-39 Gripen allowed for the integration of the AIM-120 AMRAAM air-to-air missile. An upgraded Ericsson PS-46A radar was installed and a new tactical radio. On the 4th of June 1996, the first updated prototype, JA-37 Viggen, performed its first flight. In 1996, according to Swedish Air Force Material Department Chief General Stefan Nastrom, various upgrades performed to the Viggen since its introduction had doubled the effectiveness of the overall system. The Viggen was powered by a single Volvo RM8 turbofan. This was essentially a heavily modified license-built variant of the Pratt & Whitney JT8E engine that powered commercial airliners of the 1960s with an afterburner added for the Viggen. The airframe also incorporated a thrust reverser to use during landings and land maneuvers, which, combined with the aircraft having flight capabilities approaching unlimited STOL-like performance, enabled operations from 500-meter airstrips with minimal support. The thrust reverser could be pre-selected in the air to engage when the nose wheel strut was compressed after touchdown via a pneumatic trigger. The requirements from the Swedish Air Force dictated Mach 2 capability at high altitude and Mach 1 at low altitude. At the same time, short-field takeoff and landing performance was also required. Since the Viggen was developed initially as an attack aircraft instead of an interceptor, as the Saab 35 Viggen fulfilled that role, some emphasis was given to low fuel consumption at high subsonic speeds at low level for good range. With turbofan engines just emerging and indicating better fuel economy for cruise and turbojet engines, the former was favored, since the latter was mainly limited by metallurgy development resulting from limitations in turbine temperature. Mechanical simplicity was also favored, so the air intakes were simple D-section types with boundary layer splitter plates, while the fixed inlet had no adjustable geometry for improved pressure recovery. The disadvantage was that the required engine would be very large. In fact, at the time of its introduction, it was the second largest fighter engine with a length of 6.1 meters and 1.35 meters in diameter. Only the Tumansky R-15 was bigger, and that was used on the McCoy & Gurevich MiG-25. Saab had originally wanted the Rolls-Royce Medway as the Viggen's power plant, but owing to the cancellation of the Medway, the JT-8D was instead chosen as the basis for modification. The RM-8 became the second operational afterburning turbofan in the world, and also the first equipped with a thrust reverser. According to aviation author Christopher Chant, the RM-8 has the distinction of being the first engine to be fitted with both an afterburner and a thrust reverser. It had a bypass ratio of around 1.07 to 1 in the RM-8A, which was reduced to 0.97 to 1 in the RM-8B. The RM-8A was the most powerful fighter engine in the late 1960s. The AJ, SF, SH, and SK-37 models of the Viggen had the first version of the RM-8A engine with upgraded internal components from the JT-8D that it was based on. Thrust was 65.6 kilonewtons dry and 115.6 kilonewtons with afterburner. For the JA-37, the RM-8A was developed into the RM-8B, achieved by adding a third low-pressure compressor stage over the preceding model, increasing the turbine inlet temperature and fuel diffusion within the combustion chamber. Thrust was 72.1 kilonewtons dry and 125 kilonewtons with afterburner. Owing to the increased length and weight of the RM-8B engine over its predecessor, the airframe of the JA-37 was stretched in order to accommodate it. Onboard electrical power was provided by a 60,000 volt amp generator. In the event of an in-flight engine failure, emergency power was provided by an automatically deploying ram air turbine capable of generating 6 kVA. In the early 1960s, it was decided that the Viggen should be a single-seat aircraft, Saab having recognized that advanced avionics such as a digital central computer and a heads-up display could perform the workload of a human navigator and entirely replace the need for a second crew member. The use of a digital computer would reduce or entirely replace analog systems, which had proven to be expensive to maintain and alter, as had been the case in the earlier Draken, in addition to accuracy issues. Computer called the CK37, or in Swedish Central Calculator 37. I don't think I said that right, but basically Central Calculator 37, was the world's first airborne computer to use integrated circuits. Developed by Saab, the CK37 was the integrating unit for all electronic equipment to support the pilot, performing functions such as navigation, flight control, and weapon aiming calculations. In practice, the CK37 proved to be more reliable than predicted. On later versions of the Viggen from the JA-37 onwards, it was decided to adopt a newer and more powerful computer, the American CD-107, which was licensed, manufactured, and further developed by Saab. The computing techniques and concepts, such as distributed computing, went beyond use of the Viggen in addition to civil-oriented derivatives. It directly contributed to the computers used on board the Viggen's replacement, the Saab J37 Gripen. Various electronic countermeasures were installed upon the Viggen, and these were typically provided by SAT Electronic. The ECM systems consisted of a SAT Electronic radar warning receiver system in the wings and tail, an optional Ericsson air jammer pod, and BOZ 100 chaff flare pod. Infrared warning receivers were also later installed. Infrared warning receiver. In total, the electronics weighed 600 kilograms, a substantial amount for a single-engine fighter of the era. The aircraft's principal sensor was an Ericsson PS-37 X-band monopulse radar, which used a mechanically steered parabolic reflector housed in the radome. This radar performed several functions, including air-to-ground and air-to-air telemetry, search, track, terrain avoidance, and cartography. On the J-37 fighter interceptor model, the PS-37 radar was replaced by the more capable Ericsson PS-46 X-band pulse repetition frequency, which had an all-weather look-down shoot-down capability reportedly in excess of 50 kilometers and continuous wave illumination for the Skyflash missiles, as well as the ability to track 2 targets while scanning. According to Ericsson, it had a 50% chance of spotting a low-flying McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom II within a single scan and possessed a high level of resistance interference from ECM. Saab and Honeywell co-developed an automatic digital flight control system for the J-37 Viggen, which has been claimed to be the first such system in a production aircraft. To assist low-altitude flight, a Honeywell radar altimeter with transmitter and receiver in the canted wings was used. The aircraft was also fitted with a Decca Type 72 Doppler radar navigation radar. Tactical Instrument Landing System, a landing aid system made by Cutler Hammer AIL, improved landing accuracy to 30 meters from the threshold on the short highway airbase system. In order to effectively enforce Sweden's airspace, the Viggen was integrated with the Drill 60 National Defense System. The J-37 Viggen was also equipped with the Garrett AI Research Digital Center Air Data Computer modified from the unit used upon the Grumman F-14 Tomcat. Initially, only a single reconnaissance variant was considered, but fitting cameras as well as radar proved to be impossible. The SH-37 Maritime Strike and Reconnaissance variant was very similar to the AJ-37 and differed mainly in a maritime-optimized PS-371/A radar with longer range, a cockpit air data camera, and tape recorder for mission analysis. Red Baron and an SKA-24D 600mm LORAP camera pods were usually carried on the fuselage pylons. The centerline fuel tank was converted for a short period of time to a camera pod with 2 Recon Optical CA200 1676mm cameras. In addition to the reconnaissance equipment, the SH-37 could also use all weapons for the AJ-37. For the photographic SF version, the radar in the nose was omitted in favor of 4 SKA-24C 120mm and 2 SKA-31 570mm photographic cameras, as well as 1 57mm BKA-702 infrared line scan camera and air data camera, all of which were integrated with and controlled by the aircraft's central computer. Additional equipment such as more camera pods, fuel tanks, ECM pods, and self-defense air-to-air missiles could also be carried upon the fuselage pylons. Let's see, there we go. The fighter interceptor version of the Viggen, the J-37, featured various avionics changes, including the extensive use of digital electronics alongside mechanical technology. In 1985, the Fighter Link went into service, permitting encrypted data communication between 4 fighters. This enabled one fighter to paint an airborne enemy with guidance radar or the Skyflash missiles of the 3 other fighters in a group while they had their search and guidance radar switched off. The system was operational 10 years before any other countries. The autopilot was also slave to the radar control to obtain better precision firing the cannon. Once in service, this Viggen software was regularly updated every 18 months. In 1983, the mean time between failures was reported as 100 hours, a very high reliability level for the generation of avionics systems involved. The displays in the original cockpit were all the traditional analog mechanical type, with the exception of an electronic heads-up display, which Saab has claimed makes the Viggen easier to fly, especially at low altitudes during air-to-ground strike missions. Unusually for a 1970s fighter, the JA-37 variant of the Viggen featured three multi-purpose cathode ray 2 display screens, which were fitted within the cockpit in a system called AP-12 developed by Saab and Ericsson. These displays would be used to display process radar information, computer-generated maps, flight and weapons data, along with steering cues during precision landings. Between 1989 and 1992, the AP-12 display system was subject to a substantial upgrade. In 1999, a new tactical liquid crystal display system derived from the Saab JS39 Gripen, which replaced the CRT-based AP-12 system, began flight tests with the Swedish Air Force. On the twin-seat SK-37 trainer, the rear cockpit used by the instructor is only fitted with conventional instrumentation and lacks a HUD, computer controls, and other features. The ejection seat was the Rocket Skull 37, or literally the Rocket Chair 37, and was the last Saab-designed seat in service. A derivative of the Saab 105 trainer seat, the seat was optimized for low-altitude, high-speed ejections. Once activated by the pilot via triggers built into the armrests, the ejection sequence is automated, including the removal of the canopy. In the event of a malfunction, a reserve trigger can be activated. A combined parachute and seat harness is used, which features a barometric interlock to appropriately release the occupant and harness from the seat during the ejection sequence. A manual override handle is also provided for this function. There were dedicated warning caption panels on each side of the pilot's legs. On the right console panel was numerous dedicated controls and indicators, including weapons and missile controls, nav panel, oxygen on-off, windshield defogging, IFF control, and lighting controls. Situated on the left console panel were radar controls, canopy handle, landing gear handle, radio controls, and the cabin pressure indicator. As per then standard practice within the Swedish Air Force, all cockpit instrumentation and labeling were in Swedish. With the performance requirements to a large extent dictating the choice of the engine, the airframe turned out to be quite bulky compared to contemporary slimmer designs with turbojet engines. The first prototypes had a straight midsection fuselage that was later improved with a hump on the dorsal spine for reduced drag according to the area rule. The wing had the shape of double delta with the dog tooth added to improve longitudinal stability at high incidence angles. The consequence of the tailless delta design, such as in the Viggen, is that the elevons, which replace more conventional control surfaces, operate with a small effective moment arm. Their use adds substantial weight to the aircraft at takeoff and landing. Hinged leading edge surfaces can help counteract this, but an even more effective tool is the canter. Cantered surfaces were positioned behind the inlets and placed slightly higher than the main wing, with a higher stall angle than the wing, and were equipped with flaps. The lifting cantered surfaces act as a vortex generator for the main wing and therefore provide more lift. An added benefit was that they improved roll stability in the transonic region. The cantered flaps were deployed in conjunction with the landing gear to provide even more lift for takeoff and landings. To withstand the stresses of no-flare landings, Saab made extensive use of aluminum in the airframe of the Viggen, which was constructed using a bonded metal honeycomb structure. The entire rear section of the fuselage, downstream of the engine nozzle, formed a heat-resistant ring composed of titanium. The main landing gear, manufactured by Motello Werkstad, was highly strengthened as well. Each leg held two small wheels fitted with anti-skid brakes placed in a tandem arrangement. The design requirements imposed by the large anti-ship missiles employed upon the Viggen necessitated that both the undercarriage and vertical stabilizer be quite tall. To accommodate this and to allow the main landing gear to be stowed outside of the wing room, the undercarriage legs shortened during retraction. Vertical stabilizer could also be folded via an actuator in order that the aircraft could be stored in smaller hangars, hardened aircraft shelters, and underground hangars, the latter of which were employed by the Swedish military to limit the damage of preemptive attacks. The 6 tanks in the fuselage and wings held approximately 5,000 liters of fuel with an additional 1,500 liters in an external drop tank. The specific fuel consumption was only 0.63 for cruise speeds, and the Viggen's consumption was around 15 kilograms per second at max afterburn. A pair of inlets placed alongside the cockpit feed air to the engine, and simple fixed geometry inlets were adopted similar to the Dragon, except for being larger and standing clear of the fuselage. A weapons load of up to 7,000 kilograms could be accommodated on 9 hardpoints, 1 centerline pylon, and 2 fuselage pylons. 2 inner and 2 outer wing pylons, and 2 pylons behind the wing landing gear. Centerline pylon was the only pylon plumbed for carrying an external fuel tank and was usually so occupied. A pair of air-to-air missiles were intended to be placed on the outboard wing pylons, which were more lightweight than the other attachment points. The pylons behind the landing gear were not used until the JA-37D modification, when BOL countermeasure dispensers were fitted to them. Ground crew would enter the munitions fitted into the aircraft's central computer using a load selector panel, which would automatically choose the correct values for fire control, fuel consumption, and other calculations. The AJ-37 was typically equipped with a total of 7 hardpoints, 3 underneath the fuselage and 2 under each wing. A further 2 wing-mounted hardpoints could be optionally fitted, but this facility was rarely used. Various munitions could be carried, such as several types of rockets. The 135mm M56 general purpose 4 kg armor piercing, the M56B with 6.9 kg of high explosives, and the M70 with a 4.7 kg heat warhead. The AJ-37 was designed to carry 2 RB-04E anti-ship missiles on the inboard wing pylons, with an optional third missile on the centerline pylon. The RB-04 was a relatively simple cruise missile that was further developed to become the more capable RBS-15, which was also integrated on the Viggen. An optional load consisted of 2 RB-05 air-to-surface missiles on the fuselage pylons. The RB-05 was later replaced by the AGM-65 Maverick, Swedish designation RB-75, television-guided missiles. In a ground attack role, a combination of unguided 135mm rockets in sextuple pods and 120 kg fragmentation bombs on quadruple mounts could be used. Other armaments include explosive mines and the 30mm Aiden cannon pods with 150 rounds of ammunition on the inboard wing pylons. Self-defense measures included various ECM systems, as well as either the AIM-4 Falcon, Swedish designation RB-28, or AIM-9 Sidewinder, Swedish designation RB-24, air-to-air missiles. At one point, the AJ-37 Viggen was under consideration as a carrier of both a Swedish nuclear weapon and chemical weapons, though ultimately no nuclear or chemical weapons were adopted by Sweden. The JA-37 Fighter Interceptor, introduced in 1975, featured the Ericsson PS-46A radar, which was capable of guiding the medium-range semi-active radar homing RB-71 Skyflash air-to-air missiles. Both the RB-71 and the PS-46A radar were designed to provide the Viggen with a look-down shoot-down capability and to engage targets at beyond visual range distances. The JA-37 could carry up to 2 RB-71s on the inner wing pylons. In typical air defense loadout, these would typically have been combined with 4 RB-24J air-to-air missiles, a more capable and newer version of the Sidewinder missile than employed on the earlier Viggen variants. Following the evaluation of several alternative cannons, including the British Aiden cannons, the American M61 Vulcan, the French Stefa cannon, and an Oerlikon KCA 30mm cannon, an Oerlikon KCA 30mm cannon was selected for the JA-37. KCA was carried along with 126 rounds of ammunition and a conformal pod holder under the fuselage. The firing rate of the cannon was selectable at 22 or 11 rounds per second. It fired the same cartridge as the GAU-8, reportedly 50% heavier shells at a higher velocity than the Aiden cannon, resulting in 6.5 times the kinetic energy on impact, and was effective up to 2,000 meters. This, in conjunction with the fire-controlled system, allowed air-to-air engagements at longer range than other fighters. Perhaps the most important improvement was the expanded Skrill data link, which entered service in 1982 through 1985. It allowed not only ground control aircraft communication, but also between up to 4 aircraft simultaneously, regardless if airborne or on the ground. Data link information was displayed on the horizontal situation display and a tactical display, the latter using link symbology that could be overlaid with an electronic map on a multifunction display. In July of 1971, the first production AJ-37 Viggen was delivered to the Swedish Air Force. The starboard wing, Fighter Wing 7, became the first wing to receive deliveries of both the single-seat AJ-37 attack model and the twin-seat SK-37 training model of the Viggen, whereupon the type began to replace their existing Lansen aircraft. Conversion training to pilot the Viggen involved a minimum of 450 flight hours performed on an initial mixture of the Saab 105, the Lansen, and finally the Viggen itself. Dedicated Viggen simulators were also used, the latter which was seen as a decisive factor in the ease of conversion to the type. In October 1973, Starboard Wing was reportedly close to achieving full operational effectiveness. By May of 1974, the Swedish Air Force had 2 operational squadrons using the Viggen, along with a 3rd squadron in the final process of achieving that status. By 1974, the safety and reliability levels of the Viggen were reportedly above expectations despite the overall complexity and relative newness of the aircraft. In practice, one of the most significant issues encountered with the Viggen during low-level flight, as extensively performed during a typical attack mission profile, was the threat posed by birds, As such, the Swedish Air Force paid close attention to their migratory patterns. During the latter half of the 1970s and into the 1980s, the introduction of various variants of the Viggen proceeded, including the SK-37, 2-seat operational conversion trainer, introduced in 1972, the SF-37, an overland reconnaissance model introduced in 1977, and the SH-37, a maritime reconnaissance version, introduced in 1975. By September of 1980, the J37 fighter interceptor model of the Viggen was introduced. Propello Wing, Fighter Wing 13, being the first wing of the Swedish Air Force to convert to the new type. The Viggen went on to become Sweden's primary air defense platform for many years. The Viggen was designed to be simple to maintain even by conscripted flight mechanics with limited technical training. A single Viggen could be maintained by a team of 5 conscripts under the supervision of a single chief mechanic. Standard turnaround, including refueling and rearming, took less than 10 minutes to perform, while an engine replacement took 4 hours. Over the long term, the Viggen required 22 man-hours per flight hour of maintenance work at the depot level and 9 man-hours per flight hour at the front line. By the mid-1980s, the Swedish Viggen fighter pilots, using the predictable patterns of the Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird routine flights over the Baltic Sea, managed to achieve radar lock-on with radar on the SR-71 on numerous occasions. Despite heavy jamming from the SR-71, target illumination was maintained by feeding target location from ground-based radars to the fire control computer in the Viggen. The most common site for the lock-on to occur was the thin stretch of international airspace between Åland and Gotland that the SR-71 used on the return flight. The Viggen is the only aircraft to get an acknowledged radar lock on the SR-71. By 1994, the replacement of the Viggen by the newer and more advanced Saab J37 Gripen was in progress, the type being progressively phased out as greater numbers of Gripen aircraft were delivered. On the 25th of November 2005, the last frontline Viggen was formally retired by the Swedish Air Force. A few aircraft were kept in an operational condition for electronic warfare training against the Gripen at F-17M in Linköping. The last of these Viggen flights took place in June of 2007. Although Saab offered the Viggen for sale worldwide and was the subject of a heavy marketing campaign in both European and developing countries during the 1970s, ultimately no export sales were made. During the 1970s, Saab proposed a new variant of the Viggen, designated the Saab 37E Eurofighter, completely unrelated to the Eurofighter Typhoon, for the United States Air Force Air Combat Fighter competition to find a replacement for the Lockheed F-104 Starfighter. The 37E Eurofighter competed against Dassault Breguet's proposed Mirage F-1M-53, the Seppicat Jaguar, Northrop's P-530 Cobra, on which the YS-17 was based, and General Dynamics YS-16. On the 13th of January 1975, did I say trainer? It was just the United States Air Force Combat Fighter competition. On 13th of January 1975, the United States Secretary of the Air Force, John L. McLucas, announced the YS-16 had been selected as the winner of the ACF competition. In 1978, the United States blocked a major prospective sale to India, which would have involved selling a number of Swedish-built Viggens, in addition to a licensed production agreement, under which the Viggen would have also been built in India, by not issuing an export license for the RM-8 JT-8B engine and other American technologies used. India later opted to procure the Seppicat Jaguar in its place. According to leaked United States diplomatic cables, India's interest in the Viggen was reported to be entirely due to Rajiv Gandhi's influence and had alleged have been without any input from the Indian Air Force. According to author Chris Smith, the Viggen had been the favored candidate for the Indian Air Force prior to the deal being blocked by the U.S. A complete listing of the variants include the AJ-37, which was primarily a single-seat ground attack fighter in the initial version with secondary fighter role, the SK-37 two-seat trainer, the SF-37 photographic reconnaissance variant, the SH-37 maritime reconnaissance variant, the Saab 37E Eurofighter, which was a proposed naval replacement in the F-104, the Saab 37X, proposed export version offered to Norway in 1967 and 1968, wasn't built, the JA-37, a single-seat all-weather interceptor variant with a secondary attack role, the AJS/AJSF/AJSH-37, which was an upgrade of some AJSF and SH-37s between 1993 and 1998. JA-37C, upgrade of older JA-37s, avionics and software upgrade as well as integration and countermeasures. The JA-37D, an upgrade of older JA-37s between 1993 and 1998, which include avionics and software upgrades and AMRAAM missile integration. JA-37EI, which was a D variant with avionics and software modified for international duties, with instruments labeled in English and feet per knots instead of meters per kilometer or per kilometer hour. 20 airframes modified, and the SK-37E electronic warfare trainer, which operated from 1998 to 2007. As mentioned, the Swedish Air Force was the only operator of the aircraft. General specifications include a crew of 1, length of 16.4 meters, a wingspan of 10.6 meters, height of 5.9 meters, wing area 46 meters square, empty weighted 9,500 kilograms, a gross weight of 16,439 kilograms, although the AJ-37 could get up to 17,000 kilograms. Next takeoff weight was 19,274 kilograms. Power plant, 1 Volvo RM8A or B afterburning turbofan, with the B variant providing 72.1 kilonewtons thrust drive, 125 kilonewtons with afterburner. Maximum speed was 2,231 kilometers per hour at 11,003 meters altitude. Maximums were around Mach 2.1. Ferry range 1,820 kilometers on internal fuel only. Service ceiling 18,000 meters. Rate of climb 203 meters per second. Guns include one 30mm Oerlikon KCA cannon with 125 rounds, which is, I think we had like 500s. Yeah, they gave us a BK-27 with 500 rounds, so not quite accurate there. But hard points, 9, 3 hard points under the fuselage and 3 under each wing, with a capacity of 7,000 kilograms, with provision to carry combinations of the AMRAAM, Skyflash, Sidewinder, rocket pods, ECM pods, anti-ship missiles, Maverick missiles, as well as unguided bombs. And that will just about conclude us for today. We destroyed all 5 targets. We took minimal damage. All our wingmen are dead because they're stupid. For kills, we downed 2 MiG-23s ourselves. We destroyed 2 SAMs, an SA-15 and a man-pad. We destroyed 2 Shilkas, and we destroyed 4 BT, what was it? There was a BTR-80 and a BMP-1, I think. 2 BMP-1s and 2 BTR-80s. And we also destroyed 7 trucks of varying types and a single bridge. We can see our next wingman only destroyed 1 Shilka and 1 MiG-23. We only had 1 failed launch, which was the Sparrow. Fairly high gun hit percentage, would have been higher if the hitboxes actually worked like they're supposed to. It will always irk me that the hitbox for ground units only work within like a half nautical mile, even though they should probably, like, at least for, like, I can understand armored targets potentially not working out to a mile or more, just because of the depleted velocity of the round. But unarmored targets like trucks, that should work. You know. Our bomb, we had a 66% hit percentage. Wingmen, okay, so all their missile launches were spoofed. They had a 5% gun hit percentage, because they're really bad at making those ground attacks. and only 16% bomb hit percentage. There was one SAM launch on us that we spoofed. 4 on our wingman, 1 hit, 1 failed, 2 were spoofed. Looks like there was an attempt to gun down wingman 2, but they missed. And likewise, we did take a little bit of AAA. Our wingman took more, but accuracy was overall low. So that concludes today's showcase. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for next time. And stay safe out there, and we'll see you then.